Apes and Apettes, welcome back to the channel. AMC is up about 9%, so definitely seeing a strong green day heading into earnings tomorrow. And this is very exciting, and there's a lot we need to go over from Fed speaker comments that we've seen today, the Russia-Ukraine drama that is escalating but not at the same time. Very interesting situation that is happening there. Russia is sanctioning the rest of the world. Imagine that. Your shit economy, shit currency, a bank run, and you're going to sanction the world. So we're going to get into some of those implications of that, what that could do for our markets in the short and midterm, which is very good for AMC. It's another domino that has fallen in our direction to see the AMC MOAS. And as always, we will go over all of the data that you need to know here in this video around AMC. And a lot of this is very, very bullish. Pretty much all of this is very bullish. And besides that, I will go over the way that I want to trade AMC options for those of you guys that are degenerate gamblers just like I am. Now, a good rule of thumb before we get into all of this information about options is that you should never trade an amount that you are unwilling to risk losing if the worst case scenario happens, because usually options will expire worthless about 83% of the time. So you could take a small amount into a large amount. Don't try to take a large amount into an even larger amount. That's not the name of the game, but this is not financial advice. Do what you guys got to do for your own financial situations. So with all of that being said, had to put the disclaimer in the beginning of this video. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, as well as make sure to comment down below. What is your price target coming after earnings? Do you think we're going to see a positive earnings? Let me know your thoughts on that in that comment section. Check out the pinned comment, like I said, for the buy and sell alerts, as well as that. If you guys want to get some totally free stock with Webull, Moomoo, and Public, if you guys have not done that yet, that is free money by definition. You can't risk losing a dollar, so check that out. So let's get into AMC. What's going on? The last thing we're going to talk about is how I will trade AMC earnings, because I'm a degenerate gambler. so first things first, AMC up about 8.78% today, sitting at $19.21. We're approaching that $20 level, and we don't see a whole lot of resistance at specifically the $20 price, which is a lot different than we have seen in the past, where when we had a lot of manipulation before Citadel and the banks were probed, you would see a lot of resistance at certain levels. But now you're not really seeing that resistance at the $20 level. It's really at the $21 level. But the problem is we can get over 20, but we have not closed over 20. So possibly by the end of the day today, if not tomorrow before earnings, if we can close over 20, that's going to be a key step to get us to that next level, which is going to be that level at about $23 per share, and that 50-day moving average, which is at $20.78 per share. As far as the Bollinger Bands, we are above the 20-day simple moving average, so it looks like this is a bullish move in my personal opinion. Look, we had broke under this, or even over the last couple of days, right? We had started the day really low, went all the way back up above the 20-day moving average. Same thing right here. We were down, went back above that, and now we had kind of came down a little bit close to that range, and then we did just bounce straight back up. So that looks like a very, very bullish level right there. 20-day simple moving average looking good in that regard. MACD is bullish as well. It started to want to go bearish right here, but we did not cross over under this signal line. So at least on the daily candlestick chart, it does look very encouraging. As far as the SPY for the day, the SPY is actually down 0.25%. And if we look at the markets, the Nasdaq is up about 0.5%. And this is very interesting. Russell 2000 notably up about 0.89%. But this is very different because last night we even seen the futures that were down dramatically, 2 to 2.5%. Now, we have seen a difference. We've seen a change because Russia is being isolated from the global community. So there has been a fundamental change in the markets. This is not really the weak sanctions put on banks that had initially caused that huge reversal where we were down in futures about 3%, closed up 3%. This is materially different, so I'm surprised to be seeing such a strong rebound, and I would be very weary of that. A lot of this could be shorts covering as retail money goes back into the markets, forcing market makers to hedge out all of these short positions that they have had to put on because people have been buying record amounts of puts. There's more puts on the markets right now than what we've seen before March of 2020. So keep that in mind. There's starting to be a lot of optimism, whereas this situation has just only begun. On a more positive note, it looks like Russia and Ukraine agreed to another round of talks. They had talks today. We haven't got any specific news about what was said, but it looks like they agreed to more talks. So as long as those are, good faith negotiations and they can find some kind of treaty or peace in that region, you're definitely going to see that bullish reaction in our markets. On another note, we did have Fed Bostic that spoke today. He says we need to get off emergency interest rate stance and that the markets have priced in a fair amount of rate movement. As well as that, he said if the data supports that we should do a 50% rate hike on March 16th, that's what he is going to push for, and he is more on the dovish side. So that was kind of interesting. It sent the markets down just a little bit. If you do look at the S&P 500, this was really the top, and this moved down that we just seen about half an hour ago. So that was very, very interesting. And what he means by that is that March 10th CPI number that is going to come out before that March 16th meeting. So if that number is really high, then markets might start to price in a 50% rate hike even more. But another reason why the markets are so green today relative to how red they were in pre-market and how red they were in futures trading last night, it is because that 50% rate hike probability has went down dramatically. So yesterday, we seen a 24% probability of a 50% rate hike, which 50% is bad. Usually 25% is the norm, and that's really what people have been saying is going to happen. Now you're seeing a 12.4% chance for a 50% rate hike. So this is bullish. What is happening right here? If we start to see this 50% rate hike probability number start to go back up, that's when you can see more sustained red days in the market. So very interesting. Wanted to point all of this out for you guys. We have more speakers throughout the rest of this week, and the big one is going to be Fed Jerome Powell. Think back to November when he was giving his testimony to Congress and said, hey, if inflation keeps persisting, we might have to start tapering a lot faster. And that's what sent the markets into a spiral, and people were like, hey dude, you kind of just rug pulled us at the testimony. Well, he did that because that's what they plan to do, but the Fed has made it very clear that they will communicate any moves that they make before they make them. This is different. This is a different Fed than we've seen back in 2019 when they came out and emergency raised rates, or even in 2020 when they emergency cut rates. They've been very clear about that. So if Fed Jerome Powell has a different stance and the Fed wants to do something different, they're going to have to communicate that, likely at that testimony hearing that Fed Jerome Powell will give. You also have Fed Bullard that is speaking right before Fed Powell on Wednesday at 9:30 a.m. and then Fed Chair Powell testimony at 10 a.m. So if Fed Powell says something different than we are expecting, then expect a move dramatically in one direction or the other in the marketplace. This whole Russia-Ukraine situation, it's making the price of oil go up. It's going to make commodity prices go up as well. So that could put some pressure on Fed Jerome Powell to raise rates maybe a little bit faster. And if you guys are unaware, the Russian central bank raised rates from 9.5% to 20% overnight. The Russian economy is falling apart, and the Russian ruble is through the roof, going from about 75 rubles per $1 to 103 rubles per dollar. That means you just lost essentially like 35% of your money if you had that in Russian rubles in a bank account. So it's not looking so good for Russia, and this is a material change, like I said, in the broad markets because, you know, some companies use the Russian ruble and they do own government bonds because they pay a lot, and the Russian debt levels are very, very low at about 18% debt to GDP. Like I've said a couple times now, the United States debt to GDP is about 140%, and Japan's debt to GDP, they are the most indebted country, well, in the developing and developed countries. Japan is a developed country. Their debt to GDP is about 240%. So to be at an 18% debt to GDP, it made a lot of sense for companies and countries to buy Russian bonds when they pay about 5%, and you can only get a 0.5% to 2% yield on a government bond depending on what length of maturity that you use. It's definitely not a good thing to see what is going on over there. Arguably, it is deserved nonetheless. So very important, just hit you guys with a lot of data, so feel free to rewind this video if you did not fully catch everything. But let's get into the specific for AMC, the specific data for AMC. So on the short interest side of this equation, let's go ahead and refresh the ortex data. You're looking at 20.31% short interest of free float, 104.04 million shares that are sold short. Cost to borrow max is at 3% yet again, which you have seen a dramatic jump in that today, about 1.5% move in the cost to borrow max, and the utilization is still sitting at 100%. That is very bullish. Institutions are not willing to lend out stock for 3%. They are holding on to it, and that is a good sign. Now, cost to borrow max, if that goes, let's say, to 10% and institutions are still holding on to their shares, that's going to be an even more bullish sign. Days cover is sitting at 2.34, so also looking good. The option order flow for the day is the most exciting thing I think that is in this video. The positive order value is 100%. 3 orders totaling $1.23 million. Why is this so exciting? Because even the last trading day we seen, you only seen positive order value of 23%. You were seeing 10 orders totaling $1.14 million. So large orders, look at this, in April 14th, $20 call for $260,000. All of these orders for the day have been calls, 100%, and even a larger dollar amount that you've seen the last trading day. So this is a very good sign heading into earnings because institutions tend to have more data than we do, and I think we can all agree with that. So that's very encouraging, and I do think that does bode well for AMC earnings. The Stocko tracker debt, or the max pain, is sitting at $17.50 by the end of this week. Stocko tracker data, it's obviously not a huge expiration week. 25,000 calls that are in the money, 65,000 calls that are out of the money, 2,300 puts that are in the money, and 47,000 puts that are out of the money. So not too much activity as far as that is concerned. And on the note of how I want to trade AMC, I really want to get a couple contracts, maybe by the end of the day today, if not tomorrow morning, depending on what happens. Expiring not this week, but next week. That'll be March 11th, and probably to the call side. I can't tell you which direction right now. It'll really depend on what happens tomorrow, but buy maybe 5 or 10 contracts, and then if you get a good move, a good continuation throughout of the day, if you can get 30 or even 25 to 30, 40, 50% on those contracts, I will sell out enough to get my initial investment back, and then I will hold the other contracts for free. That's really the only way I can see trading AMC earnings or any other stock, really, whether it's earnings or just trading it in general, is you want to protect your portfolio. You want to protect your capital, but you also want to get exposure. So that's the best way to do that, by buying a larger quantity of contracts and then selling out enough to get your initial investment back when you are up on that position, and then holding the rest. And sometimes those can go absolutely crazy. So that's really my thoughts on all of that. As far as earnings, I do think you're going to see a bullish earnings for AMC, simply due to the fact of you're seeing a lot of good movies that are going to be coming out over the next year essentially. Even Avatar in December is another big movie that's going to be, hitting theaters. That Avatar, the first one, it's going to be Avatar 2 that is coming out in December, was the best blockbuster movie of all time, over $3 billion at the theater. So I do imagine that movie will be good. I imagine the Batman movie that comes out this Friday will be good. And I think that will boast well for AMC as far as issuing guidance and even potentially talking about issuing a dividend if the business does perform a certain way. And I think that's going to put a lot of pressure on the short sellers. So that is going to be all for this video. Hit the like button for me, subscribe to the channel, as well as comment down below. Get yourself some free stocks, links down below in the description of this video to do so for that, as well as come join the trading community with us, link down below in the pinned comment. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you in the next one.